There's a moment in life when you wonder, why do they come back? After months of silence, after years of absence, why do they return? It's like a puzzle, a mystery that lingers in the air. And today, I'm here to shatter that mystery for you, to break down the reasons that go beyond simple explanation. We're going deeper than you've ever been. You'll walk away with clarity and truth, and you will never look at relationships the same way again. There's a certain weight to being unforgettable. It's not just about the things you said or the way you looked. It's the energy carried. The kind of energy that walks into a room and shifts everything. When a man walks away and then returns after a long period of no contact, it's not random. It's not coincidence. It's a response to something deeply embedded in his memory. You, the way you made him feel. The way you showed up with love, presence, and authenticity. That kind of energy isn't easily replaced. And when he tries to move on, he finds that every comparison falls short. Every smile lacks the warmth you brought. Every connection feels shallow next to the depth you offered. In the beginning, he may not notice it. He may think he's free, that he's ready for something new. He distracts himself. He dates. He dives into work or late at night, when the world is quiet, he starts to remember. Not just the memories, but the feeling, the sense of being seen, the rare safety of emotional connection. That doesn't fade with time, it intensifies. The distance doesn't erase you. It amplifies your presence in his mind because he realizes it wasn't just about attraction. It was something far deeper. You became the standard. And once someone has tasted that level of connection, fails down. He starts to see that it wasn't about drama or intensity. It was about the peace you brought. The grounded, fierce love that made him feel like he mattered. You challenged him in the best ways. And somewhere along the way, he realizes he didn't just lose a person. He lost a part of his own growth, his own potential. That realization hits hard. Because when a man walks away from a woman who elevated his life, he doesn't walk into peace. He walks into the echo of everything he left behind. It takes time, sometimes months, sometimes years, but it always comes. That moment where he reflects on his choices and understands that what he had with you was rare, not perfect, not without flaws, but powerful, transformative. And while he might have needed space to figure himself out, what he can't ignore is how deeply you impacted him. You were the calm in his chaos, the truth in his confusion. And now, when things go silent and he looks back, your voice is the one that echoes the loudest. So he returned. Not always with clarity, not always with a grand gesture, but with a weight in his chest that says, I remember. He remembers how your eyes held him when words failed. He remembers the way your silence spoke louder than most people's noise. And he remembers the feeling of being accepted, not for who he pretended to be, but for who he truly was. That memory, that energy, it lingers. It haunts him in moments of loneliness, of truth, of raw honesty. He thought he could replace it. He thought time would help him forget. But instead, time taught him the truth. He walked away from something real. And here's the part most people don't talk about. Sometimes it's not even about getting back together. It's about closure, about redemption, about trying to reclaim a version of himself that only existed in your presence. Because when you've been loved by someone who saw your soul, it's not just about losing them, it's about losing yourself. He returns because he's chasing that version of him again. The one who felt home. The one who believed in love. The one who looked in your eyes and saw possibility. That's what brings him back. Not just missing you, but missing the man he was when he was with you. When a man walks away, there's often a sense of certainty in his steps. He believes he's made the right decision, that life without you will be easier, simpler, lighter. And in the beginning, it might feel that way for him. The space, the freedom, the absence of responsibility. It can be intoxicating. He may convince himself he needed it. He may feel relief. But over time, something shifts. That initial relief begins to fade, and reality starts to settle in. The laughter isn't as deep, the nights aren't as full, and his world, despite being quieter, isn't more peaceful. It's emptier. And that emptiness grows slowly but surely until he realizes something he never expected. Life without you isn't better. It's just lonelier. He starts to feel the weight of your absence in the small, subtle things. In the way he doesn't have anyone to share his wins or his struggles with. You were the one he leaned on, the one who celebrated his highs and held him through his lows. And when that support disappears, there's a void he can't explain. He thought he could fill it with distractions, new people, new experiences, but nothing sticks. Nothing feels right, because it's not just about having someone, it's about having you. The energy, the presence, the understanding you brought into his life doesn't just vanish, it lingers. It stays with him long after you're gone. Time becomes a mirror. It forces him to face what he truly had with you. And with that reflection comes a truth that's hard to ignore. He didn't just walk away from a person. He walked away from balance, from warmth, from emotional safety. You weren't perfect, and neither was he. But together, you created something real, something steady in a chaotic world. And when he loses that, he loses that. He loses his grounding. Because deep down, he knows that what he had with you wasn't surface level, it was soul level. And that kind of connection doesn't come around twice. He begins to replay moments in his mind. The inside jokes, the way you looked at him. The way you stayed when it got hard, and the strength you showed when most would have walked away. Boo, memories start to hit differently. They're not just moments, they're reminders of who he was when he was with you. And that version of himself, the one who felt loved, seen, supported, that version starts to feel like a stranger. Without you, he's lost not just a relationship, but a sense of who he was becoming. And when that hits, it shakes him to his core. He realizes the value of what he had, but only in the absence of it. That's the cruel twist of human nature. We often don't recognize treasure until we've left it behind. And for him, you were patient. You were the one who believed in him when he doubted himself. And now, without that anchor, he starts to drift. He starts to see how much of his emotional stability came from your presence, how much of his strength was born from your support. That's why he comes back. Not because he's bored, not because he's lonely, but because the reality of life without you has stripped away the illusions he once believed. He thought he needed space. But what he truly needed, what he now craves, is the feeling of being understood, of being valued, of being home. And that feeling, it was never tied to a place. It was tied to you. When someone disappears from your life, it's easy to assume they're gone for good, that they moved on, that they forgot. But human transformation doesn't always happen on your timeline. It happens in silence, in solitude, in struggle. Sometimes the distance isn't about punishing you or betraying you. It's about survival. It's about growth. When a man walks away for a long time, often it's because he's facing something within himself that he never had the courage to confront before. And stepping away from the relationship is the only way he knows how to begin that journey. Not because you were the problem, but because he couldn't face who he was while standing in front of someone who saw him so clearly. Growth doesn't always look pretty. Sometimes it looks like running, like detachment, like isolation. It looks like him cutting off contact, not because he doesn't care, but because he's confused, broken, or even ashamed. When he hasn't yet built the version of himself he wants to present to the world, being in your presence can be a painful reminder of who he's not yet. And that pain can push him away. He needs time to rebuild, to evolve, to discover what he truly wants and who he truly is. And that journey, though invisible to you, becomes the foundation of his return. He's not just coming back as a man who remembers you. He's coming back as a man who finally understands himself. And in that time apart, he learns about his patterns, his wounds, his fears. He might dive into personal development, therapy, spiritual exploration, or he might just sit in his own silence long enough to hear the truth for the first time. The truth about why he reacted the way he did, why he pushed love away when it felt too close, why he ran from stability because chaos felt more familiar. It's in that discomfort he finally starts to mature. A man who has faced himself fully understands what it means to show up with accountability. He knows what he broke, what he lost, and what he could have done differently. And that awareness brings him back, not to pick up where things left off, but to offer something better, stronger, something rooted in truth. He doesn't want to repeat the past. He wants to rebuild with intention, with clarity, with the kind of respect and depth that only comes after facing his darkest shadows. When he returns, he may look the same, even smile the same, but underneath, The quiet confidence, a sense of purpose, deep reverence for what he once took for granted. He's not just seeking your affection, he's offering effort. Because he knows now that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice, a commitment, a daily decision to grow alongside someone instead of away from them. And now that he's done the inner work, he sees your worth with new eyes, not through the lens of fear or insecurity, but through the clarity of self-awareness. This version of him didn't exist before. He had to go through the storm to find it. And in doing so, he realized the difference between temporary attraction and lasting connection. He realized that what you gave wasn't just comfort, it was fuel for his purpose, for his peace, for his potential. And now, after all the silence and space, he comes back, not because he needs to be saved, but because he's ready to give, ready to build, ready to honor what he once wasn't strong enough to hold. That's the kind of return that only growth can create. There's a unique kind of pain that comes from realizing you took something precious for granted. At first, he doesn't feel it. He tells himself he did the right thing. That moving on was the logical next step. But logic has nothing on memory. And as time passes, those memories begin to play louder. The way you made ordinary moments feel sacred. The way you listened, not just with your ears, but with your heart. The way you supported him, even when he was at his worst. He didn't notice it then. He assumed it would always be there, that you would always be. But when the noise of the world fades and the silence sets in, he starts to feel the weight of what he let go. He didn't realize how rare you were until he tried to replace you. That's the mistake people make. They assume connection is easy to find, that anyone can match the energy, the loyalty, the depth. So he tries, he meets new people, he has conversations, maybe even dates, but nothing feels right, nothing clicks, because no one challenges him the way you did. No one calls him out with love, holds space for his dreams, or sees his pain the way you did without turning away. And slowly, he starts to understand. He didn't just lose a girlfriend, a partner, or a lover. He lost you, the one who was rooted, the one who was real. In your presence, he didn't have to pretend. He didn't have to perform. You loved him in the moments he didn't even love himself. That kind of love is unforgettable. It etches itself into the soul. And now, when he lays his head down at night, it's not your absence he feels, it's your presence that haunts him. The warmth of your voice, the depth of your patience, the subtle power in your silence when you chose grace over ego. He remembers it all. And the guilt starts to rise, because he knows now he didn't give you what you deserved. He didn't cherish what was sacred. He simply assumed it would wait. As the days roll on, he's no longer distracted. He's reflective. And in that reflection, he begins to see how often you put him first. How often you dimmed your light so he could shine. How you gave without asking for anything. And suddenly, it's not your voice he hears. It's his own, echoing the careless words he once said. The moments he brushed you off. The times he made you feel like too much or not enough. They replay like scenes from a film he can't turn off. And with every replay, his regret deepens. Because now, with distance, he finally sees the full picture. He starts to question himself. Why didn't he hold on tighter? Why did he let his ego speak louder than his heart? Why did it take losing you to understand your worth? And in that questioning, a deeper truth begins to emerge. He wasn't ready for the kind of love you offered. Not because you were too much, but because he was too small at the time to hold something so vast. You loved him with vision, with power, with fire, and he met it with uncertainty. But now, that uncertainty has turned to longing, a longing not just for your love, but for redemption. He doesn't come back expecting things to go back to the way they were. He knows that's not possible. What he wants now is a second chance. Not just to love you better, but to be worthy of you this time. Because he's no longer looking for comfort. He's looking for meaning. And you were the meaning all along. The depth, the truth, the light he couldn't see when he was too busy chasing shadows. Now he sees you clearly, and that clarity is what brings him back. Not just with hope, but with humility. There's a powerful truth people rarely speak aloud. He thought leaving would lead him to freedom, that cutting off contact would help him find clarity. But clarity doesn't come from avoidance. It comes from confrontation. And somewhere along the way, as he chased distractions and detours, he ran straight into the one thing he couldn't outrun: himself. And what he found wasn't strength or certainty. It was confusion. It was restlessness. Because when you've once been grounded by someone's presence, someone who saw you, nurtured you, challenged you, life without them doesn't feel freeing. It feels unfinished. He starts notice the shift in himself. The way he no longer laughs the same. The way his victories feel. The way no one really gets him. Not the way you did. You had a way of pulling the truth out of him, even when he didn't want to face it. You had a way of reminding him of who he could be, not just who he was. And that reflection you held up to him, that mirror of his potential, it stayed with him. It haunts him. Because now he walks through life with the growing realization that the man he was becoming, the better, braver, more grounded version of himself, was deeply connected to the love he had with you. People think growth is just about moving forward, but sometimes it's about circling back to the lessons we ignored, to the people we hurt, to the truth we tried to bury. And that's he recognizes that the love he shared with you wasn't just emotional, it was transformational. It demanded more from him. It pushed him beyond the shallow, beyond the performative, into the real. And that kind of love, it leaves an imprint. It doesn't fade with distance. It burns deeper over time. Especially when he realizes that no other connection since has pushed him to evolve like you did. You didn't just want comfort, you wanted growth. And in your presence, he felt both exposed and empowered. Should never judge him for them through his becoming, because it was his becoming, and that kind of love is rare. So while he may have walked away from the relationship, he never truly walked away from what it gave him. A glimpse of who he could be. That glimpse becomes his obsession. not in a toxic or possessive way, but in a soul deep kind of way. He doesn't just miss you, he misses himself with you. The way he dared to dream bigger, the way he softened, the way he grew more patient, more intentional. That version of himself didn't exist before you. And without you, he feels it slipping away. So when he circles back, he's not just looking for the fire that forged him. Pute, he wants to return to the path he abandoned, not to relive the past, but to finish what was started. And this time, he's not here to test the waters. He's here with awareness, with a reverence, with a deeper understanding of what it means to love and what it costs to lose something real. Because he knows now, it was never just about being in a relationship. It was about becoming the man worthy of the love he once took for granted. And that mission, that calling, becomes stronger than his pride, stronger than his fear. It becomes the force that drives him back to where he left his growth unfinished, back to the place where he once felt most alive. Sometimes, the most haunting realization isn't that someone left, it's that they left because they couldn't handle being truly seen. That's what you did to him? That's what you did to him? You saw him, not just the surface, not just the charm or the ambition, but the parts he tried to hide from the world, the flaws, the fears, the emotional chaos underneath the confidence. It removes the illusion of control. And for a man who's used to being in control of his image, of his emotions, of his life, being truly seen feels like exposure, vulnerability, risk. And in his fear, he ran. Easier to be with someone who didn't ask deep questions, someone who didn't hold a mirror up to his soul, someone who didn't challenge him to be better. He thought that kind of love, the easy, surface level kind, would feel lighter. Until it didn't. Because lightness without depth is emptiness. He could smile, he could flirt, he could feel wanted, but none of it touched the part of him that needed to be understood. And once you've experienced real connection, anything less starts to feel like noise, like filler, like background music to a song you can't forget. He remembers how you would look at him, not with judgment, but clarity, like you could read the stories behind his silence, like you saw the weight he carried without him ever having to speak it aloud. That kind of connection isn't just intimate, it's rare, and it terrifies people who aren't ready for it. It terrified him because you didn't just want the version of him the world applauded. You wanted the broken parts too. You believed in the man behind the mask. And when someone believes in you that deeply, it can feel like pressure. But over time, that pressure becomes purpose. He begins to understand that being seen was never the threat. It was the gift. It was the one thing he'd been craving, but didn't know how to accept. And as time passes, he craves it more than ever. He misses the conversations that peeled back the layers, the comfort of your presence when he couldn't even explain why he felt off. He misses the safety of being fully known. Not because you excused his flaws, but because you never let his flaws define him. You held space for his evolution. And now, without you, he's surrounded by people who only want the edited version of him. The a highlight reel, not the truth. There's a certain kind of emptiness that comes from being around people who don't really know you, who only connect with your mask, not your soul. And that's what he feels now. A hollowness that grows louder the longer he stays away. You didn't just offer him love, you offered him refuge. A place to rest, to reflect, to rise. And now he sees that clearly. Now he understands that what he once viewed as confrontation was actually care. What he once resisted was the very thing he needed. To be known, fully, fiercely, unapologetically. That's what draws him back. Not nostalgia, but the memory of being seen and loved anyway. That's the kind of love that breaks you open and rebuilds you stronger. The kind of love that leaves fingerprints on your soul. He left because he wasn't ready to face himself. But life has a way of circling us back to the people who saw us before we were ready to be seen. And now he's ready. Not just to be loved, but to be real. And that's why he returns. Because nothing compares to the power of being known and still being chosen. And now, as he stands at your doorstep, whether in person or in spirit, it's not just about a second chance. It's about alignment, about coming back whole, not half. He's not asking for the same love. He's offering a different presence, one forged in silence, in lessons, in growth. The kind of presence that doesn't just say, I miss you, but shows up with consistency, truth, and depth. He returns not because he's lonely, but because he's awakened. Not because he needs saving, but because he finally knows how to protect what matters. And deep down, maybe you always knew he'd come back, but this time, it's not about waiting for him. It's about choosing whether the man standing in front of you is finally worthy of the love you always gave so freely. Because your love was never the question. Now the real question is, has he become the man who deserves it?